Hey guys, and welcome to the new live episode of the Full Funnel Live. Today we don't have a lot of people joining us live, so we'll have an intimate conversation. And as promised, today I'm going to dig a little bit into measuring account-based marketing and demand generation programs across the full funnel, because traditionally we look at these motions, right, simply in terms of revenue or pipeline generated, and rarely will we have a comprehensive overview of how this motion impacts the full funnel, right? And especially for the companies that are starting out or building their pilot ABM motion or demand generation motion, it's hard to prove the efficiency of these programs, especially if they have long sales cycle, right? So there is definitely a delay between revenue outcomes and the current performance. And quite often, this is what I have experienced recently. I chatted with a few fellow CMOs of B2B tech companies that exactly fit that category: long sales cycles, high ACV, etc. And they mentioned that they rolled out pilot. They were actually for companies with whom I chatted recently. So they mentioned they started a pilot motion, pilot ABM and demand generation motion in January this year, and it was shut down at the end of April. Why? Because generally speaking, the reason was like, we don't see revenue outcomes, we don't see the results, so it makes no sense to invest more into these programs. And by the way, I'm curious, guys, if you have ever faced the same issue, or if you maybe have heard from your colleagues that somebody else is dealing with the same challenge, right? Starting out, these motions and these programs are shut down in 3-4 months. Type plus in the chat, curious to see if you have seen or maybe you have experienced the same issues as well. Let me know in the chat. Curious to hear your feedback. And while you are sharing, I would quickly give you an agenda. So what I'm going to talk about today. And by the way, feel free to type any questions in the chat or unmute yourself and join the discussion. So I'm happy to answer all of your questions. So what I want to share, right? I want to share how to measure and basically how to prove the efficiency of demand generation and ABM while the program is, let's say, while you have the pilot or it's just the early stage, right? So it's hard to evaluate. So what metrics to look at? I would share with you several examples and also an example of the report, and we'll look through metrics that belong to brand awareness and demand generation. Then we'll chat about demand capture and ad activation, and finally the revenue report. And also let me know in the chat where you guys are joining me from. So I'm again calling from Split, Croatia. Where you guys are all from, let me know. Curious to see. Prague, Czech Republic, London, UK. Good to see you. Hells, we have somebody from North America. Let me know in the chat. And I would, meanwhile, let other folks to join us. Yes, hi, cool. Good to see you, Sarah. Cool. So let's dive in, and let's start with the first category: brand awareness and demand generation metrics. So how to measure ABM and demand gen, right? I usually suggest to look at several metrics, right? Something that basically we can split it between metrics that could be tied to revenue, right? And then we can look at the positive signals or positive outcomes, whatever you'll call it, or KPIs, right? That basically prove the efficiency of the program. So first, let me share with you a simple report, the way how we look at it at full funnel. Probably you can see my screen right now. Let me know, guys, if you can see my screen. Type plus or thumbs up if you can see my screen. Yeah, okay, cool. So the example monthly report, right? I would look at few things. I would look at website visits from target accounts. And if you want to dive deeply, you can even structure it by tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 accounts, right? So how many visits did you have from the target accounts during a specific month? And obviously, this is my philosophy. This is what I'm saying. Lots of companies are looking at B2C companies or SaaS companies that are selling mass market products, let's say $5 CRM subscription, right? And obviously, these companies are operating as a commodity, right? They are selling to broad markets, and they really focus on search engine optimization. They want to grow the traffic. They don't really care a lot about the traffic quality. When we sell high CV products, right, we need to flip the view and we need to focus on the traffic quality, right? This is where less is more comes from, right? And then what we want to basically to achieve with our demand generation strategy is increasing the visits from our target accounts, right? Because ultimately, what's the point of generating, I don't know, 10K, 100K traffic to our website if the majority of people, right, who are checking our website don't fit our ICP? It makes no sense, right? We can say, yeah, it's for awareness, but what's the sense of creating awareness, right, for completely irrelevant audience? Hence, I would look at this, right? And the way how I'm looking at this, so basically, we set up the intent data. You can use any kind of software you want. We use 𝗕𝗿𝗺𝗏, and in 𝗕𝗿𝗺𝗏, we set up this simple dashboard, as you can see. So past 30 days, then we exclude the segments like competitors, customers, etc. You might be, yeah. So generally speaking, in your case, you might include customers. It's up to you to decide. In our case, we just want to focus solely on net new accounts, right? So that's why customers are not here. Then we have the engagement, we have the locations, and then we set up the industries that we want to exclude from that list, right? So basically the disqualification criteria. And then you have this metric, right? So ICP fit. Also, we want to look, it's up to you to decide, but in our case, we define the meaningful engagement should be at least 10 minutes consuming the content on the website. And basically, in this case, you see that 176 companies, right, basically fit that category. And then we put down that metric to the, let's say, if you measure this on the monthly basis, you just put it here, right? It's incorrect, obviously. I just will replace it here. So it's I just left March and April as an example for you. Just needed to add one more column. So next, what I highly recommend to track is the engaged accounts, right? Engaged accounts are those who also visited your pricing or demo page, right? So we can assume it's not the buying intent. Buying intent happens when they book a demo, right? But this high engagement intent, and in this case, this is the another dashboard that we have. We call it high intent source to account-based marketing, right? So again, let's say 30 days ago, set up, and then we have a list of companies that fit that category, right? And as you can see, in our case, it's consultant page. This is basically a page where our services are described, right? And ultimately, what we want to achieve with our demand generation program, right? We want to create more companies that fit that category, which means that if you have, ideally, if you have this cohesive model, ABM and demand gen, right, you can source these accounts to ABM program, and you can start proactive warm-up or nurturing and activation process to generate opportunity with these companies. Why? Because first of all, they are already aware of you. There is some level of trust, right? So there is some level of credibility, and you can expect a higher engagement rate with your sales and marketing team. So in our case, we won't dive deeply into it today, but if you want, just let me know in Slack in our community on LinkedIn. I can share with you an episode about the next steps when you are sourcing this account, these companies to ABM programs, right? So next, we usually do the account qualification, account research, then matching the insights collected from account research with the buying journey and deciding what exactly would be our next playbook, what content should we share with this specific account, how we should share it, right? Should we use paid? Should we use direct mail? Should we use social selling? Should we use multi-threaded engagement? Whatever, right? Or there should be another tactic to activate these accounts. So if this is something that you guys would be interested in, so ping me either in Slack or on LinkedIn, whatever you prefer. And let me check your questions. How do you track anonymous visitors? So as I told you, we use software called 𝗵𝗲𝗺. If you guys are interested, by the way, so with 𝗵𝗵𝗺, we are long-term partners. I'm using this software for already 4 years, and we'll host a webinar just in a few weeks from today. So one of the best, from my subjective opinion, one of the best software in that category. If you would be interested in testing it, again, just ping me. I can make an intro to their team, so you'll get a better deal and also extended trial. So yeah, Slack channel, our trenches community. So in Slack. So indeed, you can use, I just told you we're using 𝗵𝗵𝗺. You can, there are multiple solutions: 𝗕𝗿𝗵, demand base, zoom info, lead feeder, actually plenty of them. So feel free to select what fits your needs, right? Good. So next, what is really cool is newsletter signups by target accounts, and this is obviously this metric works if you run email newsletter, right? You can substitute it with different activities. So also keep in mind, this is just an example report. So we usually tweak this report and adjust it to every client needs with whom we are currently working, right? I'm just sharing the metrics that can demonstrate this high intent, and it makes sense to track. So next one is newsletter signups by target account. So in our case, that's an important metric. So we track this for full funnel because we have probably a lot of you are subscribed to our newsletter. We treat it as a microblog. And we also have specific newsletters for 3 categories: for go-to-market strategy, for account-based marketing, and for demand generation, right? And we can call it as an additional channel, email nurturing, right? So that's why we are tracking this. And in this case, you can set up, as you can see, right? So we set up also the high intent people who were visiting or clicking the work with us page, right? And then we have the companies. We also have this tags. We have this account enrichment and what topics these people are interested, where they are currently in the email nurturing, right? And obviously, one of the goals, as in our case, right? The buying journey, I won't even say the sales cycle. The buying journey in our case is 8 to 12 months. This is a typical one. And I mean 8 to 12 months from the first touch point, from the first contact, it was, connection request or engagement on LinkedIn. And then there is kind of engagement through different activities, demand generation activities like this live podcast, like our summit, webinars, etc. Right? Then we have this email nurturing, and usually it takes that time. That's why we're focusing a lot on that metric, right? It gives us a good understanding of where we are going and how many accounts potentially we can expect. How many accounts would later convert into sales opportunities. And in our case, we have purely inbound pipeline. We don't do any outbound, so that's why we're tracking it. But again, if you are not running email newsletter, right, if you don't have these automations, you can skip that metric. In that case, I believe most of you are doing any kind of events, virtual or field events, right? And then it makes sense to track the signups by target accounts. So events, field events, right, virtual events. In our case, we don't do that much field events because we are serving the global audience, so that's not that much convenient to host. Look, and even today, as you all mentioned, we have people from United States, India, Europe, right? So it's kind of a little bit inconvenient. But we host regularly this full funnel live podcast, and we do the monthly webinars, right? So you can see the difference in attendance, right? So podcast usually generates around 100 signups, and then we have 30 people hanging out with us live. And then we have the webinars. Usually it varies from 600 to 1K signups, depending on the topic. And one of the metrics that I highly recommend you to track is how many target accounts are signing up for these events, right? So that could be correlating with this one, website visits from target accounts. It's the same, it's high engagement metric, right? So something that you can track. Again, just to make it concrete and specific, it's not the buying intent, right? The reason why people, and the same, like the reason why you joined me today doesn't mean that you are supposed to be full funnel client, right? So the same is with your events, right? Event sign up doesn't mean the buying intent. So, but it means high engagement, and it means that this account should be proceed for further engagement. So coming back, just saw a comment about Albatross. John, just DM me on LinkedIn or in Slack, whatever is more convenient, and I would make an intro to their team. No problem. Cool. So what are the things that I suggest to look at? I just mapped it out, right? So this is the report that you can share with execs and with sales. And from my point of view, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Usually, sales appreciate it a lot, right? Because then you can if you'll be doing this full funnel tracking, right? Later, you can always connect the dots from, okay, so let's say in Q1, we had whatever 500 engaged accounts, right? From these 500 engaged accounts, we generated whatever 50 discovery calls. And from these 50 discovery calls, we had 40 sales opportunities, right? So then when you'll have this historical data, it would be way easier to prove the efficiency of all the campaigns that you are doing, right? So if you're not measuring it that way, I highly recommend to start. Maybe you don't need to have, really huge report, just focus on the metrics that make sense. What are other good metrics when it comes to brand awareness? So the brand mentions. Brand mentions, what I suggest to track. First of all, you can use software which is called mention.com, or feel free to find an alternative. I believe there are lots of alternatives. So mention.com helps you to set up alerts when your brand is being mentioned in specific threads. And what are the good metrics? What are the good triggers here, right? So for example, there was a listicle by somebody, the top companies in your industry, right? To follow, or the top companies, whatever, to watch in 2023, for example, right? So that's a good one. The mentions in the authority industry media, right? So maybe you have, like in our space, we have CXL, for example, or Marketing Profs Daily, right? So if you have been mentioned in these resources, right, that's another great success. So mentions in the communities, when somebody recommends your product, all that stuff about dark social, right? So whenever somebody asks, just a specific example, can you guys recommend a good ABM consultant or ABM agency, right? And then if full funnel has been mentioned in that thread, so for us, that's a great successful metric. So you can collect all of these insights, and I also recommend you to make screenshots right out of it, so you can always prove it, right? Next, inbound requests. This is obvious. You can, I mean, I don't need to focus here and talk about self-attribution. I believe you guys all have heard about self-attribution from every corner, so I don't need to spend a lot of time here. And next, media invites. This is kind of consequence of all your demand gen activities, right? If you are doing great, if you are running a great demand generation program, if you are doing thought leadership, right? As an outcome of your activity, aside from inbound opportunities, you'll be getting all these media invites, being interviewed on the top podcasts, right? Opportunities for guest posting on high authority websites, speaking opportunities, maybe inviting somebody from your executives, right, to specific podcasts as the guest, right? Or talk at your industry, give a talk at your industry conferences. So that's another way to measure it. This is more about brand awareness, right, than demand generation, but it makes perfect sense to track it. Now, these are the metrics that you can present, you can share, right? But aside from this, I'm looking also at some qualitative metrics, right? Something that also proves us that we are doing the right job. And then you can, again, increase website visits from the target accounts. This is what we have discussed. So ideally, we want to see the spike here, right? So that traffic from the target accounts is constantly growing. Price and demo visits. Next, total time spent and repetitive visits, right? So for example, let me open that screenshot. So let's say this company, Doc Process. What I would love to see, are they regularly checking our website or no, right? So is it just one-time visit, or there is a pattern and they are coming back to our website, right, and engaging with our content? That's a good sign. That means that somehow we are resonating for them, right? And they treat us as a source of information, as a reliable source of information, right? So what else? I also recommend you to look at some qualitative metrics as increased acceptance rate or reply rate from SDRs. You can always ask them. You can run the pipeline review meeting, something that I posted today about on LinkedIn. You can discuss, right, if they are tracking it, if they're using Salesloft or any other software, right, outreach. They can see if their acceptance rate, if they're sending connection requests on LinkedIn, right, or if the reply rate has increased, right? And that will happen. That would definitely happen if you'll be sourcing these engaged accounts to them, if you'll have a good playbook, right? I'm not saying a good playbook is obviously not, I mean, spamming everybody, hey, you visited our website, let's book a demo, right? Not that kind of playbook. But if you have a good nurturing and activation playbook, you'll definitely see a higher acceptance and reply rate. So that's a good metric to look at. What's next? Let's move forward, right? Increased mentions in listicles, something that we have covered already, and increased brand mentions recommending your product on social and in the communities. So this is the brand awareness and demand generation part when it comes to ABM and demand gen programs. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if it was clear. And if you have some questions, feel free to type. I will make sure to cover them. So the next one, I would look at demand capture and activation. And again, as you can see, we are going through the full funnel, right? So when it comes to demand capture and activation, obviously it depends on how you structure your playbooks, right? If you are running account-based marketing, then one of the metrics I would be looking at is account penetration. Account penetration means with how many people from the buying committee your team was able to connect and engage. And I don't mean the accepted connection request on LinkedIn, right? The fact that these people accepted connection request doesn't mean that you was able to penetrate into that account. I mean with how many people your team was actually able to start the conversation. It could be not even sales conversation, but at least this is a chat where you are chatting with them about whatever industry trends, about the trigger why you decided to reach out, right? Maybe if they attended one of your recent webinars asking for the feedback, right? So these things, that's a good metric. Next, it's usually when it comes to demand capturing, right, and activation, you might have specific campaigns, right? You might run paid retargeting, you might be doing account, but you might have some ABM playbooks, right? So you need to set up these dashboards that you can share with your team. And basically, when it comes to it's just an example, right, of how you can report on your ABM campaign. So imagine that last month you generated 30 high intent accounts, right, that were qualified. You ran an account research, you know their needs, you matched out, the value proposition you're offering with the buying journey stage, right? You know that you can definitely help this company or your product might be helpful, and you know there is a need, right? So the next step is trying to generate opportunities with these companies. And then let's say you sourced these 30 accounts to ABM, then you have 12 accounts that replied to you, right, that engaged with you, then you have 5 sales opportunities, and obviously you can, I mean, if you want, you can tweak this report. I'm just sharing the examples with you, right? You can look at the cost per opportunity, won accounts, acquisition conversion, right? Sales pipeline value, cost of acquisition, revenue, ACV, etc. And then you can track the campaign budget, right? So ads, direct mail, etc. So these are just the raw numbers. Don't look at, I mean, something that I just picked up and created simply just for this podcast. So these are the metrics that I recommend you to track, right? In this case, you can literally prove the efficiency of the program, and also it helps in case you know these conversations when companies work like in the lead generation mode, or companies that are sales-led, right, where outbound function is prioritized over marketing, right? Quite often you might have these conversations, yeah, but outbound works better, etc. So in this case, if you have this detailed campaign reporting, you can always compare it, right? So in this case, we had 30 total accounts, right? And we were able to generate 5 sales opportunities. So conversion to opportunities is, let's say, almost 17%. And then you can look at the outbound sequence, right? Whatever, cold calling. And then you can, for example, compare it. Okay, so this cold calling campaign, we had 1,000 accounts in the cold calling sequence, right? So from these 1,000 accounts, we were able to like only, let's say, 10 replied, and then we were able to generate only 2 sales opportunities. Then you compare the conversion, etc., and you can present the outcomes, right? Then it becomes obvious for everybody what works and what doesn't work. So this is really important to track. Let me check your questions. Are we going to get the ABM playbook framework in the bootcamp? Not sure I'm following you, because bootcamp is completely different story. We are talking about, we are right now recording the podcast episode, so feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or in Slack. I would answer your question. Daniel, the most important question, will you share access to this Notion document? I mean, no problem. If you guys need the access to this Notion documents, again, just ping me. I prepared it for this session. If you need a copy, just ping me and I will send you. And finally, I wanted to present you the revenue report. Didn't have time to collect the template, but I would quickly explain to you. So what we want to have in the revenue report and how you can connect the dots, right? So the revenue report is the final metric. Oh, let's make it different. Just give me a second. I would share with you. I would find one revenue report and share with you the example. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions meanwhile. Okay, here we go. Here's the revenue report. This is my LinkedIn post about it. Let me open the full screen. This is the report I'm referring to. So in this case, I would explain the idea behind that report, right? And now probably it will make total sense for you as you can see the full picture. So what are new MQLs? First of all, let's define who are MQLs, marketing qualified leads. For us, MQLs are the engaged accounts that will be sourced to the ABM program. So these companies, it means that these companies fit our ideal customer profile. That's the first criteria. Next, these companies already demonstrated engagement, right? So they hit specific engagement threshold, as you saw in the examples that I have shared with you guys. So MQLs, these are not, I mean, people who downloaded your gated content, whatever, right? So definitely not this. And the most important thing, these are the contacts that don't have buying intent, right? Hence, you need to continue nurturing them, warming up them, and trying to generate opportunity via inbound layers, right? That's the most important thing. So this is what we call MQLs. And this is how you can connect top of the funnel activities, right? So if we'll come back to our Notion page, right? You can see that we had, let's say, this 176 engaged accounts. This should be our MQL metric, right? Next, SQLs. SQLs, basically, these are companies that fit our ICP, right? And those that booked discovery call with our sales team, right? Or requested information about the product, service, and they fit our ICP. And the next line is marketing sourced SQLs. Why I suggest you to track it? Maybe later you can get rid out that metric. But there is one reason why I'm suggesting to track it, at least in the beginning, because that would be quite often sales would or executives, right? Depending, I mean, on the let's say the culture inside your company, right? People might prioritize sales and always say, yeah, but really it came out of sales activities, it's because of our network, etc., right? So just to avoid these conversations and justify marketing efficiency, it makes sense. And then you can always say, hey, but actually this account was already tagged as MQL or as engaged account, right? And it was sourced by marketing to sales. So ideally, what we want to do, right? What we want to achieve, we want to go from silos to joint operations by sales and marketing, right? And then we can say, so it's not about, let's say, getting medals for marketing, for generating it, but it's just proven, right, that everything that we are doing makes perfect sense. So next, sales qualified opportunities. These are basically, I mean, we don't need to spend a lot of time. These are the opportunities that sales added to CRM, right, as qualified and with a high probability to win. Then we have new customers, and you can always justify how many new customers were sourced from marketing. Lost sales qualified opportunities, win rate, average sales cycle length, net new revenue, and again, marketing sourced revenue. I know, and also we had this conversation in our summit that it should be everybody's sourced revenue, but again, just considering the reality and that we need to justify investments in marketing, it makes sense to show that metric, and again, just all the time justifying the importance of marketing and the results, right? And then we can look at net ACV. So we can look at total revenue, total invoices, and average ACV, right? Because this would be two different metrics. Net ACV, so this is average contract value from the new customers, and average ACV, so this is the average contract value from all the invoices that were sent to customers during that specific period of time. And then we have sales pipeline velocity formula, right? And ideally, so what is the sales pipeline velocity? This is basically the trajectory of your revenue based on your revenue metrics as number of sales qualified opportunities, your win rate, your sales cycle length, and your ACV, right? Based on these metrics, you can, this is basically the best way to make the more or less correct forecast of where you are going, right? Because lots of companies, when they plan and set up targets, they do it kind of blindly, right? They never look at their historical and current data, and they say, hey, so we raised money, we hired a few people now, these are the goals, we want to triple our revenue. But is there a real opportunity to triple revenue? Right, so the pipeline velocity gives you a more realistic picture of where you are going, and obviously, all the activities that you guys are running, ABM, demand generation, etc., they would have an impact on sales pipeline velocity. And ideally, what you want to achieve is increasing the win rate, increasing the sales qualified opportunities, increasing ACV, right? Because even these metrics themselves can generate higher revenue, right? And shortening the sales cycle, shortening the sales cycle length. So these are the most important things I wanted to share with you. Let me know if you have any questions. Happy to cover everything, and let me check the chat. So question from Daniel, and meanwhile, guys, if you want, let me give you an opportunity to yeah, so if you want, you can unmute yourselves and start video and jump in. I would cover the question. So question from Daniel: do you see an uplift in the campaign's performance when using intent-based platforms like 6sense or demand-based? And I would reply, I would give you my honest feedback. So first of all, there is a misbelief and misunderstanding of how these platforms should be used. So lots of companies assume that purchasing demand-based is essential to run account-based marketing strategy, but this is just a platform, right? So, and ABM strategy and account-based marketing could be done without these tools, right? So it could be done on a lean stack. You can use just simply LinkedIn Sales Navigator or the platforms that are already available, right? So that can generate the data, like, for example, newsletter, right? Your CRM, your marketing, existing marketing automation, right? The data about signups to your events, etc. So these platforms, honestly, without having a good strategy and proven playbooks. And these proven playbooks should basically, what is account-based marketing playbook, right? This is how you are going to select accounts, right? Then how are you going to research and collect the insights of from the buying committee? Next, how you'll be matching your value proposition and offering with every buying committee member. And then depending on the tier of that specific company, how are you going to market to them and presenting your product, right? And there are multiple ways of doing it. And quite often, I mean, I'm always saying that, but this is my point of view. I'm not saying that this is like the ultimate view on account-based marketing. I honestly don't believe in one-to-many ABM. So where you can upload, 1K, 2K accounts and just target them with display ads. So this is a lazy excuse. I'm always saying this is a lazy excuse of not running appropriate demand generation program. So ABM stands for one-to-one and one-to-few, really, right? So this is what you do for tier 1 and tier 2 accounts. And hence the answer to a question, if you have solid processes, right, if you have already proven playbooks, then demand base can just simplify a lot the orchestration, the tracking, right, the dashboards, etc. Programmatic ads is just a fancy add-on to these campaigns, right? Why? Because you guys all know that the banner blindness is real, right? Not so many people are clicking the banners nowadays. So it's just a fancy add-on to everything. But let's say demand base has a fantastic feature for orchestrating the campaigns, also combining all these insights that I was sharing with you today, like website visiting, right, event engagement, etc. So if you have good processes, it makes sense to, and this software might help you, right? If you don't have good processes, I mean, then it would be just a cost. And the second question was, let's say we use intent-based platforms like 6sense and run display ads campaigns through their platform. How would you report on the performance of the? This is what I was answering. So display ads is not a campaign itself, and this is what I mean. This is the problem. This is the reality. So lots of B2B marketers associate ABM platforms and think that programmatic ads are the ABM strategy, right, or ABM campaign itself. So programmatic ads could be, as I'm saying, it could be a good add-on to your playbook, but it's not playbook itself. So I'm not even tracking the display ads. I mean, clicking the display ad means nothing. So what means, right, is the account engagement. So if these people clicked, right, and then spent time on your website, let's say spent above 10 minutes, they consumed, if you create, let's say, personalized landing page, or maybe you were driving this traffic to dedicated personalized content hubs, right? Then they were clicking the resources and inside that content hub, they spent more than 10 minutes, right? That could be a good way to measure it. But ultimately, in this case, you can, if you want to add display ads performance, right, to your campaign reporting, then feel free to do it. But I won't track display ads, clicks, etc., or reach just as a metric to justify the account-based marketing program. So that's my feedback. Good. You're welcome. Let me know, guys, if that episode was helpful. Type plus or thumbs up if that was helpful. And if you have some more questions, feel free to type or just unmute yourself and jump in. Otherwise, if you need the Notion page or the examples that I was sharing, ping me on Slack or on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to help. Thanks a lot for showing up. Thanks a lot for the great questions. And see you in 1 week. Cheers. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.